Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. As you know that in the last 500 years, humans have explored and mapped the earth. So today we are going to talk about migration. What is migration? What are the reasons for migrations? And what are the characteristics of migrants? And how much distance a migrant usually travel? So migration is basically movement from one place to another. It's purely a geographical phenomena where people move from one place to another place. And there are multiple reasons behind this migration, and there are different types of migrations. We will see all these types and the reasons behind migration. And if we talk about reasons behind the migration, so it could be economic reasons, it could be better health or education reasons. This could be one of the reasons. And why people are migrating, because of push and pull factors. And if we talk about types of migration, it could be international migration or it could be internal migration. So, however, there are three main laws that I will be discussing. Robinson talk about these, that why the migrants move, what are the characteristics of migrants, and how much distance the migrant move. So basically we should talk first why the migration occurs. There are a couple of reasons in the migration, but let me talk about two main reasons. One is the most important reason is economic reasons. The people migrate due to economic reasons. There are two terms very importantly to talk about here when we talk about international migration. So there is a term which is known as immigration, with I-M-M-I-G-R, immigration, when people move to another country, or when the people are entering to another, they are immigrants. For example, if you are traveling from Pakistan to Europe or to USA, you are an immigrant in Europe or USA. Then there is another term which starts with E, emigrant or emigration. And the emigrant is the one who is leaving his country, and emigration is leaving the country. So when you are leaving Pakistan, you are an emigrant from Pakistan, and you are an immigrant in USA. So immigrant is the one who is entering the other country, and he's having immigration. That's for when you travel internationally, you have these immigration counters at international airports, because you are an immigrant in another country, and an emigrant in your own country, because you are leaving that country. Okay, so this is very important phenomena. You should understand the difference between immigration and emigration. Emigration is to exit, leave a country, and immigration is to enter. So the simple clue that I always ask students to remember is that the one with starting with E, emigration, means to exit. So if you remember E of the exit, you will always remember emigrant is the one who is exiting or who is leaving the country. Okay, and immigration means entering. So immigration means someone who is entering other country, and he is an immigrant in another country. Okay, and the reasons for this are push and pull factors. Very two important reasons for migration. Push factors are the one which basically push people for migration. For example, it could be economic instability, it could be wars, it could be environment, it could be political instability, it could be many reasons, wars, conflicts, ethnic diversity, ethnic conflicts, so on and so forth. So these are all the reasons which are known as push reasons, that people are being pushed to migrate from one place to another place. The other are the pull factors, that people are being pulled. This could be due to attraction, better lifestyle, better housing, better education, so on and so forth. So when you say that you want to have a better lifestyle, so people, who are living in cities, they move towards new advanced towns or societies that are being built because of the life amenities that are there. So that is pulling them to move towards that. Similarly, people go towards Western countries because of the lifestyle that they found is more attractive and more full of amenities. And if we talk about push, I talked about the push factors, and among the push factors, there is one major component which is known as forced migration. People are forced to migrate because of the conditions and push. This is example of the push migration, push factors of migration, and that could be slavery is one of the reason in the forced migration. If you see people from Africa, they were being pushed, they were being forced to migrate because of the demand of slavery in the European countries, and they used to come. The people from European countries, that they used to bring slaves. They used to come to they used to come to Africa, and then they get the slaves from Africa, and then they take them. So that was a kind of forced migration. And other is when there is political instability or wars going on, people are forced to move from that areas. The Syria is a kind of example of that. People, Syrian, you can say refugees. And then due to this forced migration, the problem of refugees is coming up. The people have to take refuge because of the war or the conflict. And similarly, then is another concept related with this as IDPs, internally displaced people. We had in Pakistan as well, when we were having the army was doing operation in certain areas and people were internally displaced. They were forced to migrate. So this comes under the forced migration, that people are forced because of the conditions. And one of the reason could, aside from war and political instability or slavery or other, is environmental reasons. Because when there are floods, people have to move, people have to relocate. So similarly, when there is drought, people have to relocate for the reason of food, for the reason of water. They have to move from one place to another. We have seen that this kind of forced migration also in Pakistan because of the flood that come. And in future, the environmental refugees is going to be a very big problem. Although United Nations High Commission for Refugees is there, even HCR is there, not High Commission on the regulation of refugees, but the biggest refugees problem in the world in coming days will be of environmental refugees. People will have to relocate because of the climate change, because of the unpredictable weather changes that are occurring. And most importantly, the countries that are having that are low sea level, that are not having that are not high above the sea level. So as the sea level is rising, all those coastal areas, the water will come to those coastal areas, and these all countries and cities will be underwater. And the big problem of environmental refugees is really coming in the upcoming days if we don't control the climate change now. Most of the gender, if we talk about the characteristics of the migrants, most of the migrants that are moving or migration that we see are male, and reason is behind that the male has to take care of whole of the household. So they move for economic reasons, they move for better professional growth, and they move for social mobility. And these are basically, if you talk about the general characteristics, are male. But now if so we see also for the education, there is a lot good number of female also students migrating for better education to the different Western countries. If we talk about internal migration, or even that I talk about international migration, if we talk about internal migration and further go into it, so traditionally there was rural migration, rural to urban migration. We used to see that people from villages or rural areas come to cities for better health, better education, better lifestyle, better career opportunities, better economic conditions, so on and so forth. But now there is another movement that is also seeing that from inside of rural to urban, there is a reverse or counter urbanization that is known as, and that is people moving back from urban to rural areas because of the hectic lifestyle or because of the fast pace of life in the cities. Now people are moving towards rural lifestyle, which is more relaxed. You have open or big houses, you have big lawns, and so forth. And even from urban to suburban, there is a new trend of farmhouses that you can see. People are now having farmhouses outside the cities or in suburban areas, and they like to go and live in those suburban areas because of the peace of mind, not because of economic condition or because of other amenities of life, but because of peace of mind, because of the hectic lifestyle or the busy lifestyle that they found in cities. They want to move out, and they want to feel more relaxed in that kind of environment, which is more close to the nature. And global pattern, if we see the global patterns of migration, before 1500, it was haphazard. You could travel anywhere in the world and you can migrate. So people from India, if they want to, they can go to Turkey, or people from China, they can go to Germany, and they can simply relocate themselves. They can simply migrate. It was very haphazard. There was no certain phenomena or a certain principle, and people usually go for the reason of exploration, or for the reason of trade, or for the reason to get spices. And the spices was one reason people used to go for food, and different kinds of spices they used to found across the globe. But this, if we talk about in the near past, then this was occurring before 1500. And then due to exploration, people move from one country or one region to another region. But that also does create a lot of problems. And you can see in the last 200 years, the British, the Europeans, they, for the sake of exploration, they came to different regions, and then they colonized the people. British colonized South Asia, and the French colonized Africa. Most of the European countries, they colonized Africa and the South Asian. Now what they did, they came, they ruled these areas for the sake of exploration, that they came here as explorers. Then they build trade relationships, and also that's another debate. I will not go into that because that's a very political debate, that many people again of the view that when these Britishers came, they basically looted the South Asia. They plundered us, and they took all the wealth from here, and they went back to their countries again. So that colonization had its more, or you can say, impacts. And then when we are here still talking about post-colonial mindset, or we are talking about that we need to move ahead of post-colonial mindset narrative, and we have to build another narrative out of it because of all the problems that we had at that time when the British were basically the colonizers, and we were the colony of British, and we were under their rule. So that's another debate, but that is one of the reasons of the migration, that one of the, you can say, a component of the migration that is also need to understand here. But when the Britishers left, and when they went back, so after 1920s, or you can see, we had this system of passports, and we had the systems internationally. The countries made passport, and the visa was now necessary to move. So now the pattern of migration has changed. Now it's not that free that you move from one country and you start going to live in another country. You have to have a passport first. You need a visa to get to another country. Then you need so much of paperwork and legal work to basically become an immigrant in another country. It's not in the old days that you used to go. So now there are laws. And now it's not that easy that you can leave your country and you can go and just become an immigrant in another country. You have to go through the paperwork, through the legal work, and so on and so forth. But within this migration patterns, we can see there have been a quite increase in the war and conflicts globally as well. Israel is a very good example. Jews from all over Europe migrated to Palestine. They captured the lands of the Palestinian people, and now they are ruling them. Palestinian people, on the other hand, are deprived of the basic rights in their own lands. And people of Israel, they have captured their lands. Again, it's a political topic, but this is due to this has occurred because of the migration of the Jews from all over the world to this land. Now, what I'm telling you, that this migration does create a big problems. Social, ethnic problems are there. If we talk about even in US at one time allowed the migration from Mexico because it was having because US wanted to get cheap labor, and now they have closed the borders, and they build this wall. Even the Israel also did that. They built this wall so the people don't come. But what the USA did, the USA initially allowed the legal immigrants, and then they allowed illegal immigrants so that they can get cheap labor, and now they are not allowing it. So at the same time, they discourage illegal migration, but then there are policies which you can see the people illegally go there because the country need them as well. So there is you can say a kind of hypocrisy as well, if you see in this term, that now many countries also don't allow illegal migrants. They have this strong policy, but they like that there are some cheap labor. If they can get cheap labor easily, so they can. So it's again a debatable topic or debatable thing that I would like to talk here. That illegal immigrants is a big issue. Although it's illegal, but still many countries are they're not openly they're in favor. They're in favor because they get cheap labor in that scenario. So summing up all the chapter of migration, that people move from one place to another for many reasons. I talk about those reasons, and then when the people migrate, they along with migration, there are different problems that come. And there is a conflict, ethnic conflict, cultural conflict that comes. But people have to migrate because of economic and cultural reason as well, for the reasons of war as well. There is forced migration, which has to play a role. And then in the future, if you see, people will be migrating because of environmental reasons. So this is all about migration and what are the problems associated with migration, and what in the future in the globalization, if you talk about that the world is moving towards globalization, so we can see a lot of migration between different countries in the upcoming future. But having said this, if we talk about the recent pandemic of COVID-19 and coronavirus, so it has stopped the migration patterns. Now these kinds of pandemic, they are basically again they are basically a sign that the migration will not that easy in the upcoming future days, and people will have to rethink to migrate to different areas. That is it for this movement, and we will have a question and answer session in the class. Thank you very much. All the best.